I remember growing up, my dad was a hunter, avid deer hunter, and he was old, so he started building deer blinds instead of just sitting in the woods. And he wanted to build this deer blind. I was probably 8, 9, somewhere in there, and we were working on this blind, and he's like, hey, come help me. And I remember getting in his way so much. I mean, messing stuff up, drilling screws through his hand. I definitely mess a guy up. My dad did not invite me into that process because I would make it easier for him. Mm-hmm. He brought me into that to show me how to do it. Mm. And so if we look at ministry, we have to look at it through the lens of God is bringing me into this, not because I'm going to do a good job, not because I'm going to streamline how to do it, not because I'm going to do it more efficiently, not because I have all the answers and this is how we should do it, but because God wants to show me how to tend his flock.
Welcome back to another episode of Two Dudes, One God Pod. Today, Pat and I are talking with Chance Feagin.
Hey guys, how are y'all?
So, sit back, relax, and listen to this thing because it's going to be interesting.
I'm 27. Have just had my first little girl. She's a year and a half, little Margo. She's great. Been married 6 years now, pushing 6,
Wow.
Working on her 6th year. So that's always fun. Marriage.
How'd you meet your wife at the grocery store?
No. She moved here from Alaska our senior year of high school, and she was told not to talk to me, so I didn't get to hang out with her in high school.
That was probably good, right?
Yeah, that was great advice. Whoever gave that to her, it was definitely warranted. And then we met back through mutual friends after high school. We started going steady. Got married about a year and a half later after that. 2018.
Oh, so you were... Wait, how old are you?
27. I got married when I was 21.
2018 was pretty far away now.
Yeah, it seems like it's so much has
I feel like
happened.
2020 just ended or something.
Yeah.
Like 2018 was
After
a minute.
global...
I got divorced in 2018 and
Yeah.
I'm married again.
Yeah.
So that's...
Lots has happened, man. Global pandemics. Mm-hmm. The earth is flat. Yeah, a lot has happened, man. But it's definitely been a fun journey. Parenthood and fatherhood and
so
being married is great.
how long after dating her did you know? How long into it did you know, like, this is the one?
Pretty quick. She was hard to get.
Really?
Yeah.
You like that, the challenge?
Well, the challenge was great, but it was really just she was different. She wouldn't do
She was
things.
like homeschool different? Like
No,
she was raised in
she was an
Alaska?
only child, so there was that. Okay. Yeah. She definitely had a little twang about her. That was weird. And I don't know. She was just great. She was just sweet. And so, yeah, I don't know. A lot of guys are like, how do you know when it's the one? How do you know it's the one? I don't really know if there's a one. I think you can make it work with anyone. But it's all about that commitment. And I actually broke up with her while we were dating. We started saying love, and that word scared the hell out of me. And I was like, So I broke up with her, and then a week later I was like, oh, I messed up. Mm-hmm. Went back to her, asked her forgiveness. We started good dating again, and then after that I was like, I'm committed. Because it was my whole life, love was a feeling, and then having to realize it's the action of it, what love is.
Well, then you get the most damage to yourself from the people that you love.
Yeah.
The people that you love,
they can hurt you the hardest.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So it was definitely a dynamic change in my life, having to learn what love was, and it just happened at the right time with her.
I mean, like, after my divorce, initially it was like, I'm never getting married again.
Yeah.
But pretty quickly, I was going to Cross Brand, I was talking with Paul Roberts, I was going to Spar, and I was like, man, I think I do want to get married again. And, like, when I met my wife and we initially started dating, she was so cool. Mm-hmm. Like, have you heard the Hot Crazy Matrix?
Yeah.
I was like, maybe she used to be a dude.
She might be a unicorn. She
might be
if they're a 10, they're crazy. It used to be a dude.
I had to get used to, like, not fighting.
Yeah.
Like, we've had a couple of disagreements. We've had a couple of miscommunications. We have not had, like, a yelling, screaming, F you fight.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And I was, with my previous relationships, it didn't seem like I could go more than, like, a week or 2 weeks. And then I'd be naked in the front yard.
Yeah.
Why are you leaving at 3 a.m? Like, where are you going? Where are you going? Come back.
That's good. Yeah.
Which is, that was exciting, right? There's a lot of energy there.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, my life is so cool. My wife is so cool. Like, it's kind of quiet.
Yeah.
Like, I had to get used to that.
The
you ever have that
peace.
experience? Like, I called the guy one day and I was like, hey man, I'm breathing. And he's like, yeah. He's like, what's wrong? I was like, I don't know. I just walked in the backyard and I looked around. I walked in the house and I can just hear myself breathing. I'm like, I think something's wrong. He goes, that's called serenity.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I messed that up too, you know? Like, I like panicked about it, you know, because I didn't know. So, like, I think, I don't know that, like, when I was a kid. I mean, I'm interested about your story because that idea of love, you struck it with me. Like, you're talking about, like, love was a feeling. Mm-hmm. And, dude, I've visited some churches in this area, and, like, they start handing out tissues. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then everybody's crying, and I'm like, was this planned? You know,
this
dude starts running hurdles over the pews. I'm like, I got to go. Yeah. I'm just, like, freaked out. But
yeah, no, I mean, I just hit it. I really do. I mean, my story kind of goes back to God got my attention in a very loud, abrupt, and just intentional way that I was able to have that clear focus of like what I wanted out of my life, and I knew it was Ashley. And I, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're young, dumb, and in love, and while we were. And still are.
It takes a little bit of that.
It does.
Like, if you don't have that, then you don't end up married.
And we got to build our lives together. I mean, neither of us, we got to be poor together. We got to make money together. We got to, mourn together. And all of our youthfulness, it was just a really good time for us. And how life, I wanted to do life with her, and I got to do life with her from pretty early on. And so it was always really fun. Everybody, see, if you want some controversy, I don't. Ashley's not my friend. I don't think I'm friends with my wife.
I agree with that.
A lot of guys, your wife needs to be your best friend. If that's your view, that's cool. I just think that's weird.
I think
my wife
is real. There's a friendship. There's a certain.
There's a friendliness. You have to be friendly.
Yeah, you have to have you can't have contempt.
Yeah.
You have to have, I don't know, what did Carl Jung say? Unconditional positive regard. It's very similar to grace. Yeah. Grace means unmerited favor. Unconditional positive regard says, hey, we listen and we don't judge.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what that is. That's like, hey, I'll listen to you. I'm not your enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of relationships that have a lot of contention. Like, some of the hardest, scariest, worst, saddest things I've gone through while I've been with my wife, I've been excited that she's there. I'm like, this is great, And I think y'all probably have that.
I think we do, and we, I mean, the reason she's not my friend is that she holds so much more of a title than just being my friend. Mm-hmm.
She's the other part of you.
Yeah, she's literally my flesh. We are one flesh, and being... it could be semantics. A lot of my topics and stances are just really semantics. But yeah, calling her my friend cheapens our relationship.
I agree.
So
yeah,
now we are friendly. We do things together, but
yeah, definitely. I
wouldn't consider her a friend.
Like seeing y'all like interact and everything. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Like the strength that y'all kind of exuberate, I guess is the word.
Yeah. It's a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your moment where you came to Jesus?
Yeah, do you need to give some backstory before we get to the moment? Or
yeah, I'll give a little bit. I'll just give a little bit of my Jesus walk.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I grew up in a Baptist church.
Which one?
Yeah, it's down there. It's the one that there's a good it's Jesus only loves you if you attend here Baptist church.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was. And I think we've all been to one.
Really?
No, honestly, this church was filled with some great people, and without them, I wouldn't have ended up where I was.
They laid the foundation.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was a good foundation. You just have quarrels with people. This whole Christianity thing would be great if people weren't involved.
Yeah,
and so they made it pretty difficult, but they definitely taught me what it was to like marry a church, and regardless of the issues, we can work on the issues. I'm not going to be like, oh, the music sucks, Miranda, my sister, and leave and go find a different church. Have you ever told her that? I haven't. She's great. She's angelic voice. I love her singing.
The other day, it was like, it felt like a message that she had typed up and sent to a bunch of people, but it was like, we need people to play guitar.
Yeah, I got one too.
Like, okay, you got
there you
one.
go.
Okay.
We do need some guitarists.
Yeah.
But so yeah, they really did build a good foundation, and my parents did too. I had a really stable childhood. My childhood was really stable. It fell apart, and that's what I'll get into. But my childhood was really good. So I got saved and baptized very young. I don't remember. My mom would tell me about 6 or 7, and she said I talked to her about it, and she said it was a very clear decision that I made. And I remember getting baptized in Lake, and went through all that.
You got baptized at the lake?
I did.
Lake Tyler?
Palestine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I got baptized at Lake Tyler.
Lake Palestine.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm a Palestine boy,
Yeah.
You're a Palestinian.
Yeah, Palestinian. Yeah.
Through faith.
Yeah, my walk, as that young, I don't really know. I went to all the church things and did all the church stuff, and Dad was a deacon there.
Did
Mom
they force you
worship.
to go to church?
Yeah, pretty much.
I saw a clip the other day.
Yeah.
And this preacher was like, all my kids go to church. And he's like, and we forced them to.
Yeah.
And everybody started laughing. And then I thought about it. I'm like, that's okay.
I'm grateful for it.
Like I want to introduce my kids to Jesus.
I think at that young age, for me, it was crucial. Also, that once I got a little older, I decided to, if I didn't want to go, I didn't have to. Once I could make my own decisions, they respected it. But, when I'm that young, they just took me. And it really worked. I think I'm going to do it with mine. So me and this house will serve the Lord.
Amen.
So I'm going to drag them there.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, young faith, walked through that. That went all nice and well. And then teenage years were really hard. That's when my parents got a divorce and Dad started drinking again. All that fun stuff happened. Y'all have heard the father wound story. And Whoa.
Bringing up Freedom Weekend.
Hey, father wound, man. Yeah, could join in. So my parents split, and that's when I started messing around real hard. And, God gave me about a 2-year time period, 2015, 2016. That's as long as he would let me stray away from him. But I got into drugs a little bit, just pot, and I guess not the hard stuff. I've seen some of y'all's guests.
And K2, wasn't it? It was also K2.
So not intentional, intentionally. That's the whole kicker. I went out with some friends that I barely knew. We were just gonna go smoke, and it was K2, and I didn't know that. The way he got my attention was he literally dragged me to hell, and so I got to experience hell January 13th of 2017. And I think I have. Yeah, there's a hospital band right there.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
wow.
January 13th, 2016. Sorry. Yeah, we went through that, and I've thought about this story, and because I've presented it, a good amount of times to people, and I like to share it, but it was really a story that just happened for me, and while it needs to be shared, and if it comes up in conversation, I embrace it. It was a very real experience. It just put how real Jesus is, how real this whole thing is, how real God is, how real Satan is, how real his power is. It was just a very eye-opening time at the perfect time of my life. My, Dad was pretty much out of the picture at that point. Had some real bad friends. I was doing all the stuff a heathen does, and I really was doing it all. After that night, I clung to Jesus after that. And that was a really fun journey, like that fresh, renewed faith. We got to Cross Brand Cowboy Church is where I started going after that. Those guys are pretty great up there.
So you smoked some K2 unknowingly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And like when you say you went to hell, like...
So yeah, I physically died. I was dead.
You were dead?
Dead, yeah.
Like hospital dead?
Hospital
they toe tag you dead?
No. Didn't
make it that far.
It didn't make it that far. It's just a little bit.
They resuscitate you, take you in the ambulance?
Yeah, so I actually didn't get in an ambulance. So I died afterwards in the hospital, or on the way to it.
So you smoked K2 and then your buddies were like, this dude's in trouble. So then they drove you to the hospital?
Yeah, my buddy did. Yeah, buddy at the time drove me. It was 2016. That I was 18. So we were stupid, and my friends were younger than me. So they were 16 or 17.
They were freaking out big time.
Oh yeah, I think I came back alive too because they were giving me chest compressions. I kind of remember, but I was also kind of watching myself from like a perspective. I mean,
you had like a full out of body experience.
A little bit. I mean, I really do remember seeing things that I couldn't explain. Mm-hmm. So I remember. Well, I mean, for all the weed smokers out there, sorry, but you get stuck in loops. Mm-hmm. It's kind of how it started. I remember looking at a street light. I was leaned up against the bed of my truck, and I was looking at a street light, and I was like, this is bad. All right, here we go. And then I remember seeing every point in my life where the gospel was presented to me, and I turned my back from it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, every point where somebody presented Jesus to me and I denied him. And I was like, okay, I know where this is going. Here we go. This is it. Like, I'm about to die. That's when I, keeled over and all, talking about it, and everything happened right then. And I mean, I was just going through it. Hell wasn't very visual for me. Mm-hmm. A lot of people had a visual. Mine was just pit blackness.
It was like a moment of clarity.
Yeah, and it was that you had every opportunity to choose me and you didn't. Mm-hmm. And I can remember on the way to the hospital I came to for a little bit. The only thing I could shout was Jesus is Lord. God is Lord is God is Lord, just over and over again.
Like Casey's story.
It was wild. And my buddy's driving the truck. It was a poor kid. It scared the hell out of him too. He's like, yeah,
yeah, we love Jesus.
He's good. He was sober. We were stupid, but we had a DD. So
yeah,
he got me to the hospital, and I mean,
I've never heard of a DD for some potheads.
Dude, it was our first. It was really our first times. I mean, at that point, I had smoked.
This
pot.
is like the most innocent. Story.
Yeah, I had smoked pot a handful of times, maybe 3 times. Yeah. This is like the fourth or fifth time.
And then you didn't smoke again after this?
No, it did, but it was far after that. I mean, after that, there was a lot of physical consequences that I dealt with. Depersonalization and a whole lot of just PTSD from the whole event that I had to deal with. And I mean, it was wild, the fruit that came from it. So I'm not
like you flatlined.
Yeah, no. So I mean, technically, no. I didn't have gauges on me when it happened.
Got it.
But the guys that were there,
but you were like not good.
Yeah,
like you were admitted to the hospital.
Yes.
You had
I had
room.
an overnight stay. I was there.
And they were like, "What are you here for?" And you said, "I don't know. I smoked some weed."
So the guys that were there, and the reason they were all giving me compressions and stuff is they felt no pulse. I was out.
Right.
Oh, no, dude.
And so they started that, and that's when I kind of came back to, but I went to the hospital. I just told them it was K2 because while I was gone, God was like, hey, tell them. You need to tell them. And so I told them. And that's what's so wild is like in all of that, I saw my sister praying to God, hey, get his attention. And she came to the hospital, and I was like,
was she here at Wilderness in 2018? Or
no,
this
was 2016.
Okay.
So Wilderness wasn't a thing yet.
Okay.
But I saw her praying for me, and she got to the hospital. I was like, I remember you praying for me, and that was the night before. She was in her car praying for me, and I was like, whoa! It was just mind blowing. So I saw a lot of stuff that I just couldn't explain, which just. It wasn't an out-of-body experience, but it was just visions.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't think K2 is like a hallucinogen. It's not a dissociative drug, is it? I mean,
I have no clue.
I have no idea.
Never. I researched it a lot after that because I was like,
isn't it like fertilizer? What is it?
Synthetic. It's synthetic stuff. It's sprayed on potpourri.
Yeah, sprayed on potpourri.
Yeah, it's supposed to be synthetic marijuana, but
that makes sense.
It's just a stuff. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I did research it a lot because I tried to explain away the spirit. After that,
I was like, so you're in denial
100%
afterwards.
100%. I mean, that was probably about a year after that is when I really went through it was after the realization kind of weared off and
really process it.
And Satan kind of snuck back in. He was like, no, it wasn't God, man. It was just some bad drugs.
Did God really say?
He was like, it was just bad drugs. That's all it was. It's like it's just a human nature. That's what happened to you. And so I did all my research and tried to figure out what it was, but I don't care what it is. I know what happened to me, and it was such a perfect timing for all that to happen. But I'm not tooting my own horn because I'm like the Apostle Paul. I had a transformation from Saul to Paul, and I am the least of them. But one thing I really do think that I was good at was getting a goal in my mind and then doing things to achieve that goal. As far as when it came to my spiritual walk. And so I actually had a sage that point in my life, which y'all have had him on, Paul Roberts, and I just listened to the stuff he was telling me to do. And it worked. Like all the things he was like, no, you need to forgive this dude. Okay. Wow, I'm just unchained from that. And so I got plugged in with Cross Brand, and they were a really, really cool people down there.
Yeah.
And this is also something that night. The night it happened was a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I had just gone to youth at Crossburn Cowboy Church. And I heard Travis Wright preaching about doing things you shouldn't do when you know you shouldn't do them, but you do them anyway. And then I went and this happened. So kind of full circle, but I always thought that was a wild thing that happened. And
Definitely.
It was kind of crazy. Oh yeah, but Cross Brand. So they were good guys up there, and I got plugged in with the boot camp, and Paul Roberts really just coached me through life, and we did. Me and Ashley were dating kind of right after that happened.
Y'all do premarital counseling?
Yeah, we did premarital. We did the love and respect. We did pretty much everything Cross Brand had to offer.
There's love and respect. As we were talking about it, they've got a
You're
class.
the first one to bring it up either.
Yeah, go through the class is great.
The conference, whatever you want to call it, love and respect workshop.
The conference workshop. Yeah,
it's going to be Valentine's Day evening and the Saturday after. So I don't know, it's 6 to 9 on Friday, and then it's 9 to 4 or something on Saturday. And it's coming up, and there's a couple of couples from Wilderness that are for sure going, and a couple of single guys that are going to go. And there's supposed to be a sign up. This episode's going to come out before, but if you want to go, you probably better reach out now.
Yeah, let's pitch it. I mean, it's great.
It was
Love and Respect was awesome.
You got to understand that my wife and I went while we were living together, unmarried, and she didn't believe in God at all. She was coming to church with me, not protesting it. She was coming, but what a scary. I'm just trying to put myself in her position. What a scary thing to do.
Yeah.
And then we also went to marital counseling.
With Paul and Melanie.
With Paul and Melanie.
Oh, they're great.
100%.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So good. It's just a great way for small questions to be introduced to you and new ideas.
The love and respect class, it wasn't new information. It was just arranged in a way that I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And I know that the fact that we went to that has avoided big wrecks for us.
Yeah.
That I watch other people get in the wreck, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, Love and Respect was a great way. So we went through when we were dating, and it was a great way for me and Ashley just to learn to communicate with each other, because their methods of communicating is I have to say it how she needs to hear it, and she needs to hear it how I'm meaning to say it. That's a big the blue and pink. What is it? Megaphone and ears. That's what the main thing we took away at that time, and it really showed how to give grace in conversations, and also me how to be romantic to her, and just vulnerable with her. I had to write a letter, and I'm an 18, 19-year-old kid who's trying to commit the rest of my life with this woman, and I would big and bad, and now I have to be soft and gentle with my wife. And it taught me how to do that. It's a really cool class. I recommend everybody go through it.
But marriage is such a wild thing.
Yeah.
It's you're never ready. It's just like a kid. People are like, well, I'm reading books. We're trying to get ready to have a kid. I'm like, well, it doesn't matter how many books you read. It's going to be a roller coaster.
100%.
And marriage is the same thing. I think my message to people that are dating or divorced or haven't gotten married or whatever is if you've been with somebody for a while, maybe just make the commitment and get married or break up with them, because
that's great advice.
Because inside of the commitment of marriage, we have security. We know that we can get sideways with each other, but neither one of us is going to be well, I'm leaving, we're not leaving. Where are we going to go?
Yeah. Yeah, and the commitment side of marriage and love is just it's such a not talked about topic too, of Hollywood really pushes the feeling of love and the emotion of love, but it doesn't put the action of love to work and into the pictures.
Yeah, I hate Notebook. Like, I love the Notebook, but like also like the premise that it makes is like there's like you have your flame from way back when, and then you go on and you're like in this relationship, but you're not actually in love, and that's exactly what both of them did. Was they were in relationships, but in love with each other. Yeah. But like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like if you're gonna be in this, like, pull the trigger and be committed to it.
Yeah, I think at some point jumper's got to jump. You gotta. It's. I mean, that's because marriage is supposed to resemble a relationship with Christ as well, and it takes a leap of faith. And I mean, are you kidding me? Me and Ashley, 2 young kids, we're about to, commit the rest of our lives to each other. I mean, that takes a leap of faith to do, and we took it. And that's what it takes to follow Jesus. Is you have to have a leap of faith, and it kind of has to start there by design. I mean, you can try to sit there and rationalize, answer all the whys, answer a bunch of questions, and while that can produce fruit as far as like your journey and wrestling with God, it can also stall your walk with Christ. You have to take this leap of faith. But yeah, I got hooked up with Crossbrand, did the boot camp, and man, I was all the way in on boot camp. I went through so many of those, and then kind of got an idea of what men's ministry is, and I hate the term men's ministry too. I don't really like men's ministry.
It sounds like menstruation.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. So,
which is probably what the boomers think about men's ministry.
Yeah, they don't like men's ministry. Yeah. But, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Controversy here.
Controversy. All right. I like boomers. They're okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I did men's ministry for a long time. Through that avenue, and then we moved on. That's kind of when Wilderness started. When was that? Was it 2018?
I think it was 17.
Could have been 17. Mm-hmm. 2017, Miranda started singing up here, and I just knew a lot of guys from Crossbrand that started going here, and so I just started coming here, and it's been a really fun journey, being up here and just seeing all the change and stuff. How marrying a church too. Yeah. Marrying a church is really fun too. I love the idea of that. My mama actually taught me what my mama taught me what that term meant, and it was a very, very interesting topic, like a very interesting thought of like, you have to marry this church.
I've never thought of it that way.
Regardless of the flaws, work through the flaws. Yeah. And what is marriage about if not sacrifice and serving? Yeah. That's what church is. It's sacrificing and serving for a greater cause, and that cause is Jesus. And so you have to marry that church. And so that's kind of what I did.
Was it The Gift of the Magi? Did you read that?
I don't think so.
Gift of the Magi? Maybe it's not The Gift of the Magi, but maybe it is. Somebody will probably message me. But there's like a young married couple, and the woman has beautiful hair, and the husband has a beautiful pocket watch, and so she buys him for Christmas. She cuts her hair and sells it.
Yeah.
And buys him a chain for his pocket watch. Huh. And he buys her a comb for her hair or something.
Yeah.
They give each other the gift, and then it's like,
yeah,
they're both useless or something. Or, he sells his pocket watch to get the comb. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I've heard that.
You've heard that
before, yeah.
That was probably when you were in public school.
Maybe.
Like I was.
Actually, I feel like I heard that through the homeschool.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they were doing something right, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. No, I don't have an issue with homeschool. But anyway, that's the idea. The idea of
it's hard to fight when you're serving each other and sacrificing for each other.
Yeah, but it creates some hilarious, like, just comedy of errors situations like that just don't make sense.
Yeah, I'm super bad at serving and loving my wife. By the way, I'm just it's always a constant progression. It's always growth there.
What would she say?
Probably the opposite. Hopefully the opposite. I just think looking at yourself, or I don't know. It's kind of a way of trying to stay humble, I guess, but just not, always trying to be better in those areas. I think that's kind of the goal, right? Try to always get better at loving.
I definitely judge men by how their wife treats them in public.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
big time.
Yeah,
I think it's a natural thing for you to do. Like, as soon as she goes off on him in public, then everyone's going to be looking at him like, what? either how are you going to handle that, or what's going on behind closed doors. Like it's inevitable. Like you can't prevent it. I like that. You know, the improvement, finding the improvement in everything.
Yeah.
I've always been the type that carries that over into work, into anything that I do, really.
100%.
And, you know, my dad, he was somebody that took a lot of pride in his work, and he was a very good welder for 50 years. Only put on glasses when he was like 60. But he always told me, he's like, I'm trying to learn something new every single time I strike an arc.
Yeah.
Every time. And like seeing like his work and like being right there with him, seeing him do it, I was just like, dude,
Yeah.
you're so good. Like, and you're old. You know what I mean? Like, how do you?
That's usually how that works.
You know, and you know, watching him improve from even the day before, like, you can always find something to fix.
Yeah.
And I think that if we take that into our relationships, to our friendships, into our spouses, into our church, like a lot of growth can take place from that.
Yeah, you're either green and growing or you're ripe and dying.
Yeah.
I don't think that you can arrive. I don't think there's a destination you can get to where you've got this. I think you can have salvation.
Yeah.
But I think that's the end of that. That's the beginning of the journey.
100%.
That's not the destination.
Yeah. You can, salvation. You can have salvation, live a crappy life, and then die, or you can have salvation, live a fruitful life, and then die. And it's all about what you choose to do with that gift that you've been given, and how to run with it. And that kind of goes into like ministry in general.
So you got hooked up at Cross Brand,
Yeah.
got involved in men's ministry, married your wife
Yes, 2018.
in 18, and shortly after that ended up here
Yes. Yeah.
at Wilderness.
Yep. So we were at the old building, and I mean, I still didn't do much with Wilderness other than just attend church. I was still pretty heavily in the boot camp realm at that time. But then once we moved here, something clicked about like, I just want to serve these people, and so I remember helping Jared string up lights in the downstairs and just getting everything ready. It was really cool of like preparing a place for people to come, getting to be a part of that and like just serve the church. This whole time I'm not looking at any of this as ministry, and so when we talk about ministry, I'll kind of go into how I've had a lot of revelation on what ministry is. But we've so I'm just serving, and I'm just doing things and leaning on people to kind of guide me in what they need and help. So we start going here pretty heavily, and then me and Ashley were put on lead team 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. And so lead team was really cool, and just getting to just serve more. It is a sacrifice. I mean, it's work. It's trying to plan things and make things happen and orchestrate them, and ministry is work. It was a good time just to serve
and really get to know people.
Yeah.
And I think like whenever people go into ministry, you should always have the intention of passing it on in a sense of the knowledge, not necessarily the responsibility per se, but like folding people in and including them into the flock, and really getting to expand that more, which looks like discipleship. And I think that there is a issue within the Big C Church today that there's not enough discipleship going around, because now you've got several generations now that are involved with the church, and they're just like, I go on Sunday mornings and then I leave and I don't see anybody.
Church is a place. It's an event that happens and then it's over. I think what goes along with that is when you get involved in the doing of the business of church, of the putting on, of the volunteering, of the caring and actually showing love for your family at church, then you feel like you belong. You know,
the messy is the fun place to be.
Yeah.
Like to be in the mess of it is really fun.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I've come here on some Sundays where it was like standing room only, like there was baptisms going on, whatever. It was wild. There was a bunch of people here, like back in 2018, and I remember kind of like looking in the door, and I just got back on my Harley and went home. I was like, man, that's too many people. And like today, if I had come in and that happened, and somebody was like, hey, we can get you a chair, I'd be like, yeah, cool. And I would come in and sit down in the chair because I wouldn't feel like out of place. You know, feel like I belong here. Another thing that I thought of is Price's Law. It says if you have 100 people, 10 of them do half the work, the other 90% do the other half.
Yeah.
And so there's your lead team.
It is very true. It's also a thing, if you can, about discipleship, is that if you can teach someone or show someone how to do a good, so 80% of how you want it to be done, that's good. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Because
that's probably better.
That leaves about 20% of pride out of the picture. And if you're doing it 80%, you're doing it how it should be done. I'm just, a prideful jerk.
Delegation's hard.
Yeah.
Because you can't delegate the outcome. You can delegate the task.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to micromanage and follow somebody around and go, hold on. You didn't put the paper towel on right or whatever. Because
honestly, we're talking about discipleship here, and I think most people are actually half decent at discipleship. I mean, discipleship is just being a student of Jesus. And so it's really just showing people, listen, here's some wisdom for you. This might help you. And discipleship is good. But I've read this book recently, Willie Robertson's Gospeller. Mm-hmm. If you haven't read it, it's a great read. And it was I'm going to do this so much disjustice trying to explain this book. It's basically intro to sharing the gospel and how to do it. And it was really good of like, this is the gospel. Here, let me present this to you. And then what's next? Like most people just like, oh yeah, Jesus is Lord. Listen to him, believe in him, and you'll be saved. And then they leave it at that. But he goes a little deeper. And that's where the discipleship comes in. I think most people are actually pretty good. If I get a guy that believes in Jesus and has surrendered to Jesus and decided to follow him, I can pretty much, we can make that work. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it's presenting the gospel to people, and it's gospeller was a dead word, and it just means a man that shares the gospel in no official capacity, just the common man who shares the gospel, gospeller. So it's a really cool book. I think it has great usability in most men's lives of just how to present the gospel to people. So, go check the book out. It's pretty good. I didn't write it.
Well, like Duck old Dynasty. Steck, he said, hey, man, I think we get this thing mixed up. The church thinks it's their job to save people. And he's like, Jesus saves. The Holy Spirit convicts. The church restores. Yeah. And so I think about that when I think about discipleship. To me, discipleship is not converting or, getting people to become Christians or to get saved. That's not it. Yeah. It's that's great, right? It's not a bad thing. But it's like, hey, now that that's happened, here's the next step. In sales, I'm always talking about the next step. We have a conversation, and then they go, well, I don't know. Let me think about it. And I say, well, actually, the next step is this, because you need some direction. Yeah. And if you just throw a Bible at somebody and go, here's your direction, bro, it's hairy. Yeah. There's a lot in there. Yeah. And it's hard to take some direction from that. And I think it starts with putting donuts out or cleaning the bathroom, replacing toilet paper, saying hello to people when they come in, deciding to intentionally be a part of a group of believers.
100%. And so I think the umbrella word for all of this is what we call ministry.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've learned a lot in the past year is just what ministry is. I remember growing up, my dad was a hunter, avid deer hunter, and he was old, so he started building deer blinds instead of just sitting in the woods. And he wanted to build this deer blind. I was probably 8, 9, somewhere in there. And we were working on this blind, and he's like, hey, come help me. And I remember getting in his way so much. messing stuff up, drilling screws through his hand. I'd definitely mess a guy up. My dad did not invite me into that process because I would make it easier for him. Mm-hmm. He brought me into that to show me how to do it. Mm. And so if we look at ministry, we have to look at it through the lens of God is bringing me into this not because I'm going to do a good job, not because I'm going to streamline how to do it, not because I'm going to do it more efficiently, not because I have all the answers and this is how we should do it, but because God wants to show me how to tend his flock, how to take care of his people, and he wants to grow me and change me into what he wants me to be. And so also at the end of that, it says if there is a believer in Jesus, if there is a Jesus follower out there, and you think that you are not in ministry, you have believed a lie from Satan himself. Every Christian is in ministry. And having to take that for what it is, as the challenge that it is, and run with it. The fact that some people are like, oh, I'm not in ministry, I'm just a follower of Jesus, it's a lie. You're in ministry.
Yeah. I've had conversations with Paul Roberts and Jeff Butler about that stuff. We talk about having freedom conversations. I don't think Jeff can get through a solid 24 hours without praying with somebody in the parking lot of a gas station, foregoing a business opportunity because he wants to talk to him about freedom, or whatever, boot camp. And I appreciate that. They do it in a genuine way that's not like people that are going to save everybody they meet. It doesn't feel tacky like a bumper sticker. It feels real. Yeah, 100%.
I think that one of the unique things about discipleship and discipleship for Christ, through Christ by the Holy Spirit for God's glory, you can say something to someone who you're teaching, you're discipling that person. And then as that person grows, then say you're going through an issue. And that person that you used to disciple has now turned and started discipling.
Yeah, it's a rare time where you get to eat the fruit off your tree.
Yeah.
And that's it's a pleasant thing.
This is one of those things in life that are counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, the master never learns from the apprentice.
Right. Yeah.
But
and then Jesus.
Yeah.
Then
100%. Jesus can make everything backwards if he wants to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a humility thing too. 100%. So Steck said something else, and I listened to it today when I was driving again.
Really?
So it's like I love listening to the finished product. It's just not fun to edit, but he said something like, the reason I'm here is because I'm a good teacher, and I'm a good teacher because I'm a good learner.
Yeah.
I'm a good leader because I'm a good follower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so I think that's humility.
Yeah.
That explains humility. Because we talk about humility, I think people get confused about that. They think like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I can't do it, I'm not equipped to do this. And that's the magic about it.
Yeah.
Because somebody that has that feeling, you give them a small thing to do.
Yeah.
And it multiplies. God grows that. 100%. And it's so fun to watch. I think one of the neatest things that ever happened to me is I think I was in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting or something, and I kind of teared up, and I walked out of the meeting, and this guy goes, "Hey, what's wrong?" And I was like, "I was just listening to that guy over there, and he's doing so much better."
Yeah.
And he was like, "You're getting better too. I can tell because because God softens your heart."
Yeah.
To things that are annoying, He'll soften your heart.
Yeah.
To Absolutely. Like the kids climbing the poles downstairs, or a drink getting spilled in your car, somebody not holding the flashlight exactly where you need it when you're trying to do something tricky. That kind of stuff. God comes to me in those small moments.
Yeah.
And I think that's ministry too.
Yeah.
And Paul Roberts would probably say that our ministry begins in our marriage, at our home.
That's the first ministry.
That is the first place that I feel inadequate.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. How do I do this,
Yeah.
Like, Michelle read all of Luke in December and like discussed it with Dallas. We had discussions. We watched some of The Chosen.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll pray for you, I don't know what to do, I'm like, what do I do? We're right here.
Yeah. Ministry and marriage, how to minister to your wife and how to lead your wife is first of all, you have to be someone worth being followed, Yeah. You're not going to be a crappy leader trying to lead your wife. It's going to go bad places. And
It's like the difference between a boss and a leader.
100%. Yeah.
Go do this. Go do this.
Yeah.
Or the leader's out in front. Hey, this is how we do it.
Yeah. Follow me.
Leading from the front.
And it used to be a very toxic trait from older generations. I don't think we've mentioned them yet, but there it is. Yeah. Really, just to do as I say, not as I do. Do what I tell you, and shut up. And we're gonna do that. But really, putting yourself in the ring, fighting for your wife, and it really does start, like, the basic tangible steps are, yes, read your Bible with your wife, pray with your wife, lead her in that's pretty the 2 steps you can start now, and just watch the fruit that comes from that. A lot of good things will happen. Obviously, marry a church, find a church, do that, because you need that community to help you. And then start really embracing ministry together and go into the world and do that together. And I think there's so much fruit that comes for that. I mean, I remember praying for my wife so much. I was just praying for her. And God's like, she's not hearing these words that you're saying about her. I was like, oh, yeah. No, I messed all that up.
Over her.
And then I started praying over her. And now she's literally hearing these words of encouragement all the time from me. And what does that do to their psyche? Like, it just like, wow, the guy I chose is just blessing me right now over and over and asking for fruitful things for me. And I mean, eventually they just butterfly out. And there's something about praying over your wife and them hearing those words over and over of blessing and prosperity and, how to grow and all these things. And that's been one of the biggest blessings, is praying with my wife. And hearing her prayers for me is just, I'm a softie.
Do you ever struggle with having some imposter syndrome in ministry, at home, anywhere?
What is that?
Imposter syndrome
is being found out. I'm a poser. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's like thinking. It's like the first thing. Like, I'm not equipped. I don't know. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the answer to this. I can't pray for this, or I can't serve in this capacity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't know why it is as relevant as it is, but I would say it comes from a place of being humble. A lot of guys are like, why do I deserve this? And because I think it's trauma from other people in ministry. I mean, if you have a guy walk in who hasn't built a relationship with anyone and just says, oh yeah, I got this, I'm worthy, we can do it. There's just sometimes confidence comes off as cockiness.
Sure.
And so we try not to.
Sometimes cockiness comes off as confidence.
Yeah.
But they're not mutual,
Yeah. It's a fine line there.
Have you ever had a person, place, or thing that you've put on a pedestal and you've really idolized, and you've thought, like, oh man, this guy or this church or this organization, it's so good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it failed.
Yeah.
And then you were like, did it just crush you?
Yeah, my parents. Yeah.
It just, no, really,
Yeah.
it just, so I think things like that, I think that a lot of men are egomaniacs with an inferiority complex.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think it causes us to step on people's toes unintentionally, and then when they react sharply to us, then we're like, well, what's wrong with you, and I think that leads us to that kind of, I think that's the devil whispering in our ear, and that's why we talk about humility.
Yeah.
Humility just means I think of myself less. I think of somebody else first.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm worthless.
Yeah.
So to me, like, that's a dangerous spot too, because I can think I'm being humble.
Yeah.
And I can really just be shitting on myself. I mean, and that's not fair.
I really think, what is it in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 15?
Is it?
I don't know. I'm thinking of Paul when he taught. I think I said it earlier. Of, he said, "Yes, I'm an apostle of Jesus Christ, but I am the least of these. I am who I am." He said, "I have authority. I've suffered for Christ. I am who I am, but I'm the least of these." It's a really beautiful approach at humility, because he's saying, while I have this position and I have suffered for Christ, I have earned the right to do this, but he blatantly states his history and he's not hiding his sin.
I like where he says, like, for the good that I would do, I do not.
Yeah.
For the evil that I would not do, that I do, or something. I think that's the King James version or something. But, like, I identify with that. I used to think I had like the Midas touch of shit.
Yeah.
And anything I touched, anything I got involved with, relationships, jobs, friends, vehicles, anything that I really coveted, it just burnt up.
Yeah.
My life was like, it was like I was trying to hold water in my hands and it just slipped through my fingers.
Yeah.
You know? That's a really tumultuous place to live life. That's a really violent, scary place to live life. And I think a lot of men are just driven by fear.
Yeah.
And today I have just a general peace almost all the time, even in Dallas traffic at 5 o'clock on a Saturday.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm just like, no problem. And I think people that don't believe, or people that are maybe not as reliant on actual faith, that haven't really taken the full step in, put their whole body at the cross, you know, it baffles them.
Yeah.
I can honestly say that, like you just described my 20s. You know, everything that turned to shit. Like, you think that you've got all the answers. You think you've got everything figured out. And you really think that you're all in.
Yeah.
But then God starts exposing things to you specifically.
Yeah.
And you're like, why you got to talk about that? You know what I mean? And whenever you really go all in, the last couple of years for me has really been the best years. And I can blame it on my 30s. Maybe I learned some stuff. Yeah. But I know that there was definitely a moment whenever I was like, okay, God, it really is just me and you in this. And you're really the one that I want to be sold out for. And not that I'm tooting my own horn or anything like that, because I don't have anything figured out.
Yeah.
But you've learned the lessons you've learned.
Exactly.
And it's really hard.
Stuck.
It's really hard to have that wisdom, not knowledge, but wisdom.
Yeah.
And then go out and purposefully sin.
Yeah.
That doesn't agree.
Yeah.
So what I found out in my 20s, you know, I got sober when I was 18, but in my 20s, my behavior did not line up with my belief system.
Oh, yeah.
And that is a hard place for a man to live.
Yeah.
Especially one that's claiming to love God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if in my 20s, you know, like I quit going to church at like 15 or 16, and I didn't come back to church till 30, and that was to fix a marriage and some stepkids.
Yeah.
And that didn't work. And then at 33, I was divorced, and 33 was a big year.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
not trying to
year.
put any juju on you or whatever, but 33 was a big year.
Yeah.
And that's come up with multiple guests in this podcast.
Yeah.
Which is
The
like,
year 33.
Me included. I mean, I'm 33rd year has been my best year, hands down.
Cool.
I had a wonderful.
it wasn't necessarily fun for me.
Yeah.
Let's say that. You know, I got divorced, and my dog died. I had to sell my house and my rental property, and it was, you know, I had to draw an AR-15 on this crackhead from across the street of the rental property.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, I've got my dog. And I was like, I'm going to shoot your dog first. And I mean, it was wild.
Yeah.
I just think that I accumulated a lot of life experience in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, by the time I found Spar and Cross Brand and Jeff Butler and Paul Roberts and his wife Melanie, and by the time I started kind of, you know, getting on my knees with a group of other men and crying, like crying, and just being like, God help me, I don't know what to do. You know, like, I'm done. Whatever you want me to do, I'll just do that. I'm out of good ideas. This is decades sober.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I've got a lot of my life straight, you know? Like, I wasn't having the same issues that I guess your average person that stumbled into something like Spar or Cross Brand or a boot camp were having, you know? But I was still not 100% choosing Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, the moment that I did that, it's wild, dude.
Yeah.
It is what the timeline of the things that I was given, of the gifts that showed up in my life, doesn't make sense. I don't deserve my wife. I do not deserve to have my daughter in my life, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure everybody else would argue that I do. But like, I felt like a failure as a father, as a husband, as a man, as a business person, in every aspect. I was like, God, you're it. I'm not it. And then all the things that I never could line out. And like what Pat said, he's like, oh, in my 20s, I said, if everything would just get lined out and everybody could, man, you can't That's not my business. God's in the outcome business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm all over here wanting this outcome.
Yeah.
You know, and all the conservative people we listen to on TikTok and stuff, they're, you know, that's what the liberals want. They want equality of outcome.
Yeah.
I mean, they're asking for it from the wrong source.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I've seen God bless people beyond understanding. You know what I mean?
100%.
And it's not a merit-based deal.
Yeah. That's what I love about it. Is that it doesn't matter your previous walk. Once you make that Saul to Paul conversion, which most people go through,
Yeah.
like, you are renewed.
But why is it so hard?
Yeah.
Why is it so hard? If I got on the phone and I dialed a random phone number, which I used to do when I was like 12, it was fun. I'd be like, hey, you know, is
Your
Mike
refrigerator running?
You know, here, yeah, that kind of stuff,
Uh,
right? If I called somebody and said, hey, I've got a gift for you,
Yeah.
their instinct right then is I'm going to hang up. I do some phone call based sales stuff, and it's, you know, people like hanging up on you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I knock on their door, they might listen to me for a minute, but they want to close the door. If I knock on the door, or I call somebody and I say, I've got $100 million here for you. Publishers Clearinghouse, here you go. Sign this paper. It's your money. No strings. They're going to take that gift.
Mm-hmm.
But if you knock on the door and go, do you know Jesus Christ is your personal Lord and Savior? They're shutting the door,
Yeah.
even in East Texas.
Yeah.
Right? But nobody's got time for that. That gift is more valuable than $100 million.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the relation side of it. I mean, cold calling, unless you can talk a lot, talk your way out of a trap.
I've
Cold
got a
calling
gift
is-
for it.
Gift to go.
But
I think-
I'm telling you, like, that's the thing. That's the contention point for discipleship.
Yeah.
Is that the goal of the church, from my perspective, has been to save souls.
Mm-hmm.
So you get them converted, you get them to, you know, accept the Holy Spirit, Jesus into their life, and then you would say, "See you Sunday."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's like grabbing an 18-year-old kid, slapping a bunch of military gear on him, and putting him in Chirac.
yeah.
And it's like he's not ready for it. And that's where the discipleship comes in. It's
Well,
like,
and then I would say nobody's ready for it.
Yeah.
It's just like having a baby or getting married.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much knowledge you acquire.
yeah,
Knowledge is useless.
Yeah.
The world is a dangerous place.
Yeah.
And you can't ever be safe.
yeah,
Safety is an illusion. Job security is an illusion.
100%.
The only thing, see, Jesus said, trust in the Lord.
Yeah.
He didn't say trust your wife,
Mm-hmm.
trust your husband, trust your boss, trust your
government.
employer, trust
Mm-hmm.
the government. He didn't say any of that. He said, give to the government what's the government's. You know? But all the things that we're taught in school, in church, growing up, all the things that I learned, they weren't necessarily not true.
yeah. I mean,
They just weren't
one of them
helpful.
is.
You know, I got you. They just necessarily they weren't necessarily helpful.
Yeah.
They didn't. It was a good foundation. It was a good enough foundation that I came back when I was out of answers.
Yeah,
I knew where to go,
yeah,
but I didn't know that Cross Brand or Wilderness would have the answers.
yeah,
I didn't know where the answers were going to be.
Yeah.
I just knew a couple places that, you know, I'd have some low hanging fruit. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll hit something. And when I was ready, the teachers were there.
yeah,
You know, not to plagiarize Confucius or whoever said that. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
yeah.
But that's my experience.
I mean, that's biblical too. And I mean, he who has eyes, let him see. He who has ears, let him hear. I mean,
yeah,
it really,
if you knock, the door will be open unto you.
yeah. I mean,
you know,
you really do. The student really does have to be ready. And you know, I think it's really because the answers came from Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, it necessarily wasn't the place. I mean, that was just the avenue he might have let you use, but
Yeah.
you know, Jesus shows up everywhere as
100%.
all of these stories we hear, and yeah, it's definitely a good part.
And really getting to know Jesus in his humility,
Yeah,
I think, is really important also. Like, you saw Paul, you know, he's like, I'm an apostle, but I'm also the least of these. Look at Jesus also. There was an instance where after the feeding of the 5,000,
yeah,
he's coming off, I think it's from the Sea of Tiberias. These people show up and are like, oh, where you been at? And he's like, what are y'all here for? Like, are you here for more food
yeah,
that I gave y'all from yesterday, 2 days before, whatever? And they're like, well, yeah, that was a cool thing that you did and all, but, you know, Moses fed the people
No,
for
they did
40
more.
years off of manna. And Jesus said, no, it wasn't Moses who fed the people, it was my Father in heaven. And that's whenever he goes into I'm the bread of heaven. In that chapter, it talks about how they were ready to put him up as king.
Yeah.
Right then.
Yeah.
It said that Jesus like slipped through and did his like little
Jedi mind tricks. He's like,
just got out of there. Jesus could have had and you also see it in the temptation of Satan.
Yeah.
The temptation of Jesus from Satan.
Is the temptation of Satan a Book of Mormon book?
Probably. I'm sure it's out there.
Sounds like
They're
it.
like, Satan, if you act right, you'll get your own planet.
yeah. But you see, Jesus had the options of having everything in the world given to him from Satan's perspective.
Yeah.
All he had to do was just give him bread.
Yeah.
But then also, Jesus had everything offered to him by the religious people of the time. And Jesus was like, that's not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
I've got a much deeper ministry. There's people out there that like to think that Jesus didn't know that he was going to be sacrificed, that he was going to be going to the cross, but
Well, he alluded to the fact that was going to happen several times.
Yeah.
So, like, let me ask you this, Pat. Would you take a quarter from me today if I told you that I would give you a quarter today, but if I give you this quarter, tomorrow you won't get $1? Or would you wait for tomorrow and get the $1?
yeah, I'd wait tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's all that was happening there. I think Jesus understood what was going on. He was trying to tell these other people, like, hey, cool. I hear what you're saying, but, like, there's something bigger.
Yeah.
And, like, I can't tell you about it yet.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Or it was more of I think that pride was in there also, even in the disciples.
Yeah.
Like, even with the
100%.
people that were there. Like,
yeah, because they're humans.
Because Jesus is telling them this stuff, and then Peter's like, I'll never leave your side, Lord.
Yeah.
Where else are we supposed to go?
He's got that puppy dog syndrome, man.
Definitely.
But
But
do you think Jesus was funny?
oh,
I think he was
Do you
great.
think he was funny?
Yeah,
I think
people
so.
wanted him at his weddings. He was a good guy. People wanted to be around
He
him.
was funny, dude.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I feel like he's laughed with me about some things.
Yeah. I don't want losers at my wedding.
Have you ever gone to a strip club with Jesus?
What?
Because I have. Yes,
Okay.
I got invited to a bachelor party.
like a Jesus?
Yeah, no, Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah, I got invited to this bachelor party. And I was like, man, I don't know. I was pretty early in sobriety, you know. And strip clubs were real novel,
yeah,
you know, because I was like
Yeah.
19. So it was like a fun, crazy thing to do.
yeah.
And I said, I guess I'll go. But like I prayed before I left. I was like, hey, God, going to this bachelor party, why don't you come with me? And so like I invited him to come with me. And I think that's a fresh perspective. I don't think we don't pray like that. I don't think. I don't hear it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
We say things like, God, I know you're here.
Yeah.
But I've actively made bad decisions,
Yeah.
gone to bad places with the knowledge that God was with me. And
Yeah.
I didn't put this together until Travis got onto that, you know, what would you do
Oh, yeah.
if you knew that
Yeah.
God was with you? Mm-hmm. And then it hit me that, like, 12-step talks a lot about, you know, a God of your understanding or conscious contact with God. And I had to, like, you know, I have to, like, take sentences and, like, take the word and write the definition and try to break the sentence down because I it's a big idea in a small sentence. And I think in pictures and videos. I don't think in, like, words and paragraphs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, I broke all that down and I'm like, what is God consciousness? And then it hit me. It's like saying, hey, God, good morning. I know you're here. I know that you're with me.
Yeah.
So some of my prayer life is like that. It's just like, morning, God. You know,
Yeah,
today
yeah.
we're going to do some work, or today we're going to go to the airport.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the amount of frustration that builds up before I'm like, okay, God, I need some help here is less.
Yeah.
Because I've already kind of
brought him into
consciously,
the situation.
intentionally said,
Yeah. Prayer,
with me
prayer
today.
is so much more than just, you know, a structured, dear God, amen.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and so it's just a constant communication with God.
it's like
That's like the
texting.
goal. Yeah.
I think of it like texting with
texting?
God, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I hate texting, but
Mine's like you remember when we were kids and you would like make a phone call. I don't know if they had phones when you were a kid. Sorry, never mind. Scratch that. No, you'd fall asleep on speakerphone, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of how it is with God. It's just a phone call. It's always on speaker.
Yeah.
And my prayer life is also a really interesting topic too. Of like, what people's prayer life looks like and how to do that. I think it's structured most of the time like, well, you get to wake up and pray, and then you pray before you eat,
and then you pray before you go to sleep.
And pray before you go to sleep.
And make sure you do it.
Yeah, and if you don't, you're in trouble.
You're going to go to hell. Yeah.
No, I mean, just the amount of times either the topic of Jesus and God has come up today has been uncountable. The amount of thoughts of God and Jesus I've had today have been uncountable. Like, I'm just in constant prayer.
Because it's from desire.
Yeah.
It's not from, like, I need to do this. It is what was it in Paul's episode that we were talking about? Submission.
That's a good question for you. I don't know if you listened to Paul's, your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if you listened to his episode, but I asked him his thoughts on the difference between compliance and surrender.
Okay.
With very little context. I mean, just in general. Just
Yeah.
the word compliance and the word surrender, because I think, I'll give you this, which is probably more than he got, but I think I benefited from compliance. And I would say that compliance is like ritual, praying, choosing to do the right thing, compliance. Surrender is like, I surrender all. Like, hey, God, here's it. I'll do whatever you want to do. Compliance is like, I'm doing what God wants me to do, but surrender is like my whole spirit. To me, that's my thought on it.
I see that. I think
like a kid can mind his parent because he doesn't want to be punished, and that's compliance.
Compliance, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think God can work through you in spite of your compliance. I think compliance might come from a place of, it's not. I don't think it's as beneficial, but I think it can be. Interesting question.
It didn't occur to me that it was probably too big for a podcast. There's some topics that come up, and like 3 weeks later, you're like, "What was he saying?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that compliance or surrender thing.
Interesting.
It's like, I think you have to surrender.
But there's some things you have to do too, out of
like Steck was saying,
like spiritual disciplines.
Steck was raised in parochial school, and he was like a Catholic, and he wanted to be a Catholic priest. And Catholics have a lot of rituals and rites that they do. My thought on that is that a lot of that's good.
Yeah,
a lot of it's good because you're building a pattern, a habit, a behavior that feels comfortable, and you get into, so that's good. Not necessarily bad.
Yeah.
But I think until I truly surrendered to Jesus.
Yeah. I've seen compliance go bad too. I mean,
sure.
I mean, I've seen a lot of guys that are like, I read my Bible every day. All right, cool. What'd you learn? Well, I don't know.
I just read it.
I had to read it.
Well, I mean, I think compliance and surrender, it kind of matters who you're being compliant or surrendering to.
Oh yeah, it has to be worth.
I've seen a lot of guys be compliant or surrender to their wives and to their wives' thoughts and desires and emotions. And I've seen that turn into chaos.
Yeah.
But I think if a husband submits and complies to God, to God's will, then I have not seen that lead to chaos.
Yeah, I don't think either one could really be super bad if you're doing it for Christ. I mean,
I don't know that compliance or surrender are good or bad themselves.
Yeah.
To me, it's just, where's the energy coming from?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's not, I don't want to get in trouble. It's like, hey, did you tell the truth or did you get caught?
Yeah.
If you got caught.
I think that the deal of compliance, it can lead to surrender.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that there are definitely moments like, who are you actually being compliant to? Are you being compliant to yourself, in your thought process, in your ways, or are you trying to actually be compliant to the ways of the Lord?
Yeah.
Because, like, one of the things that people love to bring up whenever you look at church history, they look at the Crusades, right? Everybody's poo-poo on them, like blah, blah, blah. They were being compliant to their governments.
Yeah.
And the Pope. Well, that was like a whole deal, though.
that was the
the
pride.
government said, the Pope said, we need some people to go do this thing, and the government said, well,
Go do this thing.
If you're convicted, if you're a murderer, if you're any of these bad things, we're going to torture you and kill you, or you can go to the Crusades.
Yeah.
And they said,
I
cool.
got a sword.
We'll go loot and pillage. Now, I've been watching a documentary on the Crusades that's like a college level course, and it's super boring. I keep falling asleep because it's just some bald guy. Like, there was a lot to the Crusades that I don't think people really talk about,
All right. I don't think as a Jesus follower you have to read your Bible every day.
I agree.
I agree with that.
All right, cool. A lot of people are like, no, you got to read that thing every day.
I've got into the
You're like, well, that didn't work.
Never mind. Let me try something else.
I got into the rut of reading every day in kind of this similar situation you talked about earlier. All right, well, what'd you learn today?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I got to where I would be remembering things from like a week ago because it was so impactful.
About a week ago.
Yeah.
And the more and more that it weighed on me, the more that I accepted the weight of the thing that came up a week ago.
Yeah.
That became more of my focus.
Yeah. Now, yeah.
And I can't say that, I would have gotten the same thing from reading it if I hadn't have been in that,
I have to.
that rut of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But now in my life, I don't read every day, but I do meditate on the Word. That's where, I had a Sunday school teacher, Patty Clark. Shout out
Patty
Hi,
Clark.
Patty.
Shout out Aunt Patty. She always would tell us, to store the Word of God in our hearts.
Yeah.
That was such a concept to me, even as a young age. Not even necessarily a believer.
Yeah.
I mean, I would call myself a believer up until I wasn't. Until I got mad.
Yeah.
Once I got mad at God,
Didn't
that's
get what you
whenever.
wanted.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with Him. So
Never mind. Man.
I
do it
mean,
myself.
Santa Claus got
But
Yeah,
storing
Santa
up the Word of God in your heart is something that it becomes a well spring to pour out.
Yeah.
Once you get it in,
in God's hands.
Exactly. In God, and that goes back to, what y'all were talking about. I can't remember what it was that y'all said, but in my mind, it's we preach the gospel. God opens blind eyes.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about the things that we're doing. God is working in a million different conversations within one small circle.
Yeah, a lot.
And that's His process of opening blind eyes. Our job is just to talk about Him whenever those questions arise that people have that, this happened whenever I was really young and I didn't quite understand this. Well, maybe had you had a little bit more understanding in that, then you wouldn't have ended up on the same crash course, right? So, because, that certainly happened to me. Like, I had a lot of questions and nobody was answering, or I wasn't getting the answers that I wanted.
Yeah.
And whenever I didn't have somebody to, like, kind of rein me in on it and to really speak to it in my heart and to allow God to open my blind eyes.
So you went to the Word.
No, I didn't go to the Word. God, that was whenever God ended up finding me. Like my next, run around was the whole concept of everything that I've been doing, all these drugs I've been taking, all these people I've been around. Like that conversation happened for at least 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And then God showed up and opened my blind eyes.
He's so patient.
He really
So
is.
patient.
And
So
and he knows exactly when to do it and how to do it in such a way that me looking back on it, I'm like, that. How did you do that?
It wouldn't have worked any other way.
Any other way, at any other moment, at any other time.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what
God's patient, but the devil's persistent.
Yeah. He is a nasty little booger.
I've got to be careful reading because I like to be right and I like to argue.
Yeah.
I like to be right. I don't
Yeah.
know. You know, looking good, feeling good, being right, being in
Yeah,
control, the
100%.
faces of pride. I really like to be right.
Yeah.
And I can argue the wrong side too. I like what would they call it? Debate.
Debate.
I like to debate things.
Debating's really
Yeah.
fun.
I'm a master debater.
Yeah.
And
That's
and
good.
I've gone through periods in my life where I know what I know. And that's a dangerous spot for me
Yeah,
because I'm
100%.
blind to what I don't see or what I haven't learned when I'm so focused on how good I am at knowing this thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I got into a kind of a bond with my mom this week because I know that I'm right about this thing that I'm right about. And it's really, I guess it just doesn't matter probably. But at the same time, my wife's asking me questions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, this is how it is, you know, because I went to Sunday school and I know that. But like, I don't know where it is or
Yeah.
what it actually says. And Stack talked about already been chewed food, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going to a
chew it up.
restaurant, they go, "Hey, we chew the food up for you," you know. I mean, that's
It's
like
so
what
gross.
that's what it's like to go to church and just listen to what the preacher has
Yeah.
to say. And I have an aversion to preaching.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I've had the amazing opportunity to have some fantastic preachers in my life.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. David Dykes, amazing. Paul Powell, amazing. Travis, amazing. I would say Paul Roberts, I put him up there too.
Yeah, he's
Just
good.
a gifted follower of Jesus. You know,
yeah.
these guys, they get it, and they build a relationship with you, and because of the relationship, I can listen to the preaching. I would say that I haven't agreed with 100% that every one of them has ever said. I haven't agreed with all of it. My life experience has been pretty different than all of them too.
Yeah.
You know, but I think a good preacher earns the right.
I have an aversion towards preachers as well. And
It's like an immediate distrust.
yeah. And I don't know if that's preachers' faults. I think it's the church overall, Big C Church's fault. They put preachers on a pedestal, really, really high up there. And I know, in my
And the
opinion,
biggest
church isn't
biggest
for the
stone
preacher.
that unbelievers have to throw is hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy of believers, hypocrisy of the Big C Church, hypocrisy of the preachers, of the TV pastors, and the wealth preachers
Evangelists,
or whatever, the
televangelists.
televangelists,
Yeah.
and the Joel Osteen. You know, everything's good and prosperous, the prosperity gospel or whatever. You know, dude, I'm really idealistic.
Yeah.
I'm super rough around the edges for somebody that is so hard on myself. You know, I'm so hard on myself. I'm so hard on the people I love.
Yeah.
I mean, I can cut people up. You know, I think what did Stack say something about like sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I think he said something about that. He goes, that's not true. Words are powerful.
Yeah.
Jesus was the Word.
Yes.
You know, in the beginning, the Word was with God and God was the Word and all that. Like, words are powerful. And so I think that there's a lot of faith placed every Sunday, every Wednesday when people go to their church or their house of worship and they listen to somebody. There's a lot of power there.
Yeah.
I know that Travis holds that in high regard,
Yeah,
that he's
he
aware
does.
of it, you know,
does.
and I respect that. And I know that he's not perfect, and he never said he was perfect.
I think a good way to go about it is to view believers as preachers. And for some reason we put paid preachers on this pedestal.
Yeah.
And controversy. There's the Bible says a lot about, you know, if you're going to be teaching, you need to be held above reproach to a higher standard. Me and Pat have talked about that before. And I think it's a pretty easy cop out for us to be like, well, I'm not a preacher, you know, but so this is what I think. But you're representing Christ. And so what are we just saying? You're like, because we teach people about Jesus all the time. All three of us, like everybody that goes here pretty much teaches people about Jesus. And so
There's never ending opportunities here.
Yeah.
There's always somebody needing some grace.
100%. Yeah, I need more than I can give.
A little bit more.
Yeah, you know, I think looking at believers as preachers, you're a gospeller. You're going to share the gospel with
like
people, and we've always put paid ministry on this pedestal, and it's weird to me. It's always been a thought of mine of why we do that.
It's a little unfair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little unfair.
Well, it says that they'll be judged harshly. I want to be judged like that. Just because I don't get paid to preach, like I want to be judged like that.
Dude, you know what got me on that judgment deal was the movie The Shack.
Yeah.
somebody had
book
something
or the
going.
movie?
The movie. I didn't read the book, but like somebody, we were at check-in one night or spar or whatever, and somebody had something going on, and somebody was like, "Have you seen the shack?" And I don't guess, there's like 4 of us there, and only one guy was struggling, and I guess it's probably something we couldn't fix for him, and they just played the movie. It was like a room full of grown men crying. Mm-hmm. One of them was like a rodeo guy, like broke his back 5 times, crazy, tough guy, and we were all just in there crying. And I'm like, God's not a black woman? I was so confused, And I think the point is the scene where they're like, okay, then you choose, you judge, and he's like, no, oh, bro, I got it, and I know that I'm perceived as harsh and judgmental. Yeah. People hear me, see me, I'm demonstrative, whatever it is. Because when you feel guilty about something and you see that you think somebody's judging you, then you feel that magnified. I get it because I'm hard on myself. Yeah. So if somebody's tearing me a new one, believe me, I'm already like, oh, can't believe
I'm already
I did
6
this,
steps ahead of somebody.
Yeah, and so it's like we don't need that. Mm-hmm. We're humans. We need grace. Yeah. We will preach and shout for justice. Yeah. But if I had justice, we wouldn't be recording this podcast today.
100%.
So that particular scene in that movie, man, because the subject, I don't want to give it away. Y'all go watch it if you haven't seen it, but the shack, and it was powerful to me. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh, man. Things like that are really interesting because they help you see something in a different perspective. And I think in some cases, yes, I can read. I'm very literate. I like reading. But I'm a captive of my own life experience and my own glasses, my own worldview. Yeah. And so if I read it, I'm not guaranteed to get the same message that I can get from somebody else's graphic depiction of it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
100%.
And so, but several people have said that I need to read the book, so I guess I'll add that to the list.
It's pretty good. I mean, if you've seen the movie, it's pretty much the same.
My mom was like, the book was way better.
Yeah, mine too.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
That's a boomer. It's a boomer thing.
It is a boomer thing.
Yeah, the book's way better.
I don't care, book or movie. They're both pretty all right. Yeah. Definitely some things. I don't know. Movies are great. Movies are pretty great. I'll just stick to the movie.
You were at the Forge, right? You came to see the Forge.
I wasn't there, but I have seen the Forge.
Okay,
but I wasn't there.
I watched it like last week.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. It was pretty good.
I think the sword analogy was my favorite part of that.
I thought the whole thing was pretty Tuttle-esque.
Yeah.
I can say that because I don't think you can figure out how to open up Apple Podcasts. Like by the end of the movie, I was like, I totally understand why he brought us to see this movie.
Yeah. It's good.
Where else can you go and sit down with 3 guys that you don't, I mean, like, you and I don't, like, we're not tight. We don't know each other big time. We don't really know each other. Where else can you go and sit down in a room with some guys that you've seen a few times? Yeah. And have a conversation and pretty much not disagree about anything. And it's not about sports and it's not about guns or, you know what I mean? It's not about some kind of safe male topic.
100%. Yeah.
Nowhere. I don't know where. It's another example of, like, I really believe that I'm grafted into this community here at this church. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? Yeah, and given enough time away from it, like, we skipped last Sunday and I haven't been to a check-in in like 2 weeks or something now. Today, I was like, man, something's not right. I'm like, maybe they did have check-in and nobody called me and they just didn't post it on Facebook. Like, I've been excluded from it. And Michelle's like, didn't Miranda send you a text about playing guitar? I was like, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I am in this.
I don't know. And then Pat was like, are we going to record or not? And I was like, oh, okay.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
They're still here.
Right. But, like, the things in my life that I have, I know that I didn't earn it. I don't deserve it. And I don't want to lose it. So the things I'm afraid of today are totally different than what I was afraid of 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago.
Definitely.
Right? Yeah. Like the things I'm afraid of hurting my kids, losing my wife, losing my friends, the guys that I actually care about, that I want to see. I called Pat the other day. I'm like, I didn't really have anything to say. I just hadn't talked to you. And he's like, yeah, I'm eating Jersey Mike's. I'm like, okay, cool. So and I was like, this is weird. I'll let you go, dude. I just wanted to call you. And you know what's funny is I wouldn't say that Pat and I are like super duper tight friends either. I mean, like we're friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we know each other. We're doing this podcast together. It's just a bizarre thing to look at.
Yeah.
Not that we wouldn't be friends. We're becoming closer friends through this.
Yeah.
But it's a shared activity.
Yeah.
I think that unity is something, talking about us three in the same room, agreeing. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, especially whenever I believe it's an answered prayer of Jesus's.
Yeah.
Because you see in John chapter 17 where Jesus is talking to the Father and the disciples are listening
Yeah.
to him talk about them. He's praying for them to his Father. And I think that, I totally understand the concept of like an echo chamber and how it can be a problem, right? Like whenever you get everybody on the same page and they're just marching forward. But look at the destination.
Yeah.
Look at the restoration that happens along the way whenever you have the body of Christ firing on all 8 cylinders, moving in the same direction, having the same heart with the same purpose.
Yeah.
It pours over into so many different things
Yeah.
that, he can just call me up while I'm having a Jersey Mike's and recommend a 99, and I don't know what the hell a 99 is.
You gotta get a 99.
I'll have to try
They're
it.
good.
But it's the simplest things
Yeah.
that Jesus has covered in that prayer
Yeah.
because of how great he really is.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with unity, and I mean, even if we, because we are our core beliefs are probably identical, and so the little things like the preachers or the held to higher standard or read every day, all these things we can work out together and we can talk about and work through and sharpen each other, but the unity is there, and that's something. I mean, churches. There's like 30 churches just on Broadway.
Yeah.
Like that we were actually talking about today with Nick about unity and division and how big of an issue it is in everything, and that there is unity here, and I think there's a movement of unity. I know we're pretty focused in on like this church and in our community, but I think there's movement happening.
I agree.
Worldwide of true unity.
I think that it's gotten to a point where churches are starting to wake up and realize the trail of trash that not every church has left behind, because there's plenty of churches that have wonderful legacies throughout the years. But they've seen enough of the trail of trash that a disunified church has left and experienced it, or people have come from other churches and experienced that. And whenever somebody finds that place to be unified in Christ, you want to protect that.
Yeah.
You don't want to cause the strife, especially when you're not looking at yourself as the end all, be all, I'm quote unquote right. I know for me, with my walk, I used to always want to be right. That was a big thing. Like I always like having the knowledge of something about somewhere, somehow. But now, in the last couple of years, my refocus has not to been right, but to be righteous.
Yeah.
And sometimes being righteous is shutting your mouth, is listening, opening your ears,
Knowing you're wrong.
changing
that.
admitting it, moving into a different, and maybe even sharing your struggle on why you are wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that is the righteous answer to the things. Like, I mean, you can go through the list of things that you can have every single person write on in the church, and it'll be totally different answers all the way across, right? But whenever you're looking for the righteous answer and what Christ has done and what he's actually prayed for us to have in that unity within the church, a lot grows. And I think that's what we're experiencing at Wilderness, at other churches as well.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people that I've known through other ministries that, you know, they're starting to fire on all 8 cylinders. They're really starting to get their team together, so to speak, and really starting to witness to people and having people come in and actually pour into the church, because like it's the idea where people just come to consume.
Get me started.
The consumers for the church, and not to say that if you find yourself as a consumer in the church, there's something wrong with that.
I mean, I thought I was one. And then I got invited to the volunteer dinner, and I'm like, I didn't volunteer for anything. And Travis was like, no. And so that's more of that imposter syndrome deal.
Yeah.
Like, just because I don't have an official title,
100%.
like I don't deserve this, you know?
Yeah. When I got an official title, I'm like, what? I don't.
Wow.
I hung lights and swept stuff, and no.
Well, I think that we're avert to conflict. People don't want negative emotion. They don't want conflict. And the person that's a true consumer, they'll go to a church that's a big show or that's not a big show, whatever it is that they want. They'll find a church that has that. I see posts every week on Facebook. I'm looking for a church that burns candles and doesn't have incandescent light. I mean, whatever, all kinds of crazy
No smoke and
requests.
mirrors, please.
Yeah, I definitely want them to wear robes. I'm like, what? I mean, people have all these weird preferences. And that's fine.
Yeah.
People can have, look, not everything that happens at the church that I go to is what I would prefer.
Yeah.
You know? But my whole life has been filled with conflict. And I'm not afraid of it anymore.
Yeah.
What I've found is if I have conflict and we can have a discussion, an honest discussion, most of that conflict can just go away. It didn't even matter. And we can have resolution.
Yeah.
Then we can have unity.
Yeah.
So you don't get unity. So I think the issue with an echo chamber is that you have unyielding unity, or I don't even know if that's a good way to put it. You have unity that's just like the Nazi Germany. Like nobody wanted to say anything. They're like, yeah, cool, let's just kill him.
Right.
You know?
You don't have the confrontation that takes to make unity.
Nobody told Hitler, hey, bud,
let's not do this.
Like, meth was a great invention, but we shouldn't be doing this, or whatever the deal was, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I think that our church leadership and my friends in this church are also not afraid of conflict.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like,
Dangerous,
if we could ever get Travis, dangerous.
Choosing to be.
If we could ever get Travis on here to talk about the duck hunting trip, you know, I don't want to say anything else about it.
Don't say anything.
I find value in that.
Yeah.
I need to be around other men that I can have conflict with.
Yeah.
And then we can shake hands, hug, and like we can work that out. If I find that I'm in a place where I can't really be who God made me, I can't really express what I have to say without being into a conflict that's not going to get resolved, or they don't have an interest in resolving, or if it's going to devolve into some kind of I'm going to get kicked out or whatever, I probably can't be here anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think that my walk with other believers began in conflict, but it definitely got to a place where I felt like if I really told the truth, I couldn't be here anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I found Crossbrand, I found the first place I'd ever found in my adult life that, like, I told them exactly the truth of what I was doing.
Yeah.
And they were like, sit down. You're right where you're supposed to be. And then I come here, and I'm like, I've made a little bit of progress. They inched me across the field goal deal. You know, it was wild.
Yeah.
You know, and I got here, and y'all were like, "Cool, glad you're here." I'm like, man, that's weird. A lot of places say that, but in my stomach, I felt like they didn't mean it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying they don't mean it. You know.
Yeah. There's just
I'm saying
some.
they don't mean it, but I know that some don't.
Yeah.
And I believe you couldn't convince me otherwise that these two churches for real meant it.
Yeah.
Not only that, not only were they glad that I was here and let me stay, but they were happy to have me be involved.
Yeah. And the consumerism is weird, and Travis has been hammering that pretty hard. And I've laid into some guys and had that conflict so that we can find unity of why we consume, and think that this is all just for us.
It's like mindless,
Yeah.
you know?
I think it is, and because there's this one guy, no names. That's why. That'd be crazy, right? If I just named him.
conflict.
Yeah, just has been consuming for so long, and I'm like, hey, you need to take it to the next level. I think there's a general period where if you're a new believer or this whole thing is new to you, you get to stand in awe of the presence of God for a while and enjoy that. I think that's a really good part of the gift.
Yeah, we call that the pink cloud.
Yeah, the pink cloud.
Pink cloud.
And you can enjoy that for a little bit, but at some point the goal is to share that gift also. And when you don't do that, I'm not as close with God as I used to be, or I'm just in this lull. So yeah, because you're not doing
right.
You're consuming still. And
I think the real awe of God is seeing the church work.
Yeah,
I think that is something that is so incredible because we serve the God of generations. Mm-hmm. We serve the God of all nations. In this faith, Jesus is the only thing in the world that I, a red-pilled, blue-collar man covered in tattoos from East Texas, can have this same thing in common with an 88-year-old woman in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Who we can have true unity.
Yeah.
And be working together on something. Mm-hmm. Whenever believers get to that point of, I'm just not as close as God as I was whenever I was sitting on the front row just looking at the pink cloud, this, that, and the other, the pink cloud is still there.
Yeah.
You're not realizing the true potential of the church.
Yeah.
People think that the true potential of a believer or the idea of what ministry is somebody up on stage bringing a lesson or singing, whatever.
Yeah.
The real mark of a believer is finding every ministerial opportunity that they possibly can in whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest humbling experiences for me is whenever I became a butcher.
Yeah.
So I went from being a welder, not like a super duper awesome welder, but I could weld. And
your medical stick.
I could run a good stick down, you know. And there were plenty of times whenever I was the only welder on the job type thing on military bases. And I always felt like a hot shot, you know, walking around on base, being awesome welder, right?
Yeah.
Just how we do it.
Yeah.
But then I came home and I asked around at a couple of shops if they were hiring welders, and they were like, we'll start you at $14 an hour. And I was like, absolutely not. Yeah. I'm not about to burn my arms up for that. So I just walked into the butcher shop and was like, y'all need somebody to stack boxes. Like, I don't even need a big deal. I don't need a big show or anything like that. And they put a knife in my hand and had me start.
Can you weld this?
This knife back together.
They put a knife in my hand and had me start skinning stuff. Well, I eventually got to where I was off of the kill floor into the butcher's block cutting the meat, and then I got to a point where I was cleaning. And if you would have asked me 10 years ago how excited I would be about cleaning stuff, I would have laughed at your face. But now, because I've humbled myself, I've gotten myself out of my own mentality of thinking, and progressively I got to a point where I was excited about cleaning, and everything that I cleaned, I considered it, I was cleaning for Jesus.
Yeah.
That's something that taught me a lot about what God really expects from us. Mm-hmm. He doesn't expect us just to walk up and have all the right answers. He doesn't expect us to be able to run every single thing. Sometimes he just wants somebody to show up and clean.
Yeah.
Sometimes he just wants somebody to be the lesser route and just be a minister of presence.
Yeah.
And he did it. You know, he washed his disciples' feet. And they were like, whoa.
Exactly. Like, they were, why would you do that?
I think, Pat, that's a surrender thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a surrender thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And it takes time. You don't just, like, wake up and do it.
Yeah.
But it's that...
You can.
It's that, what do you call it?
I don't know.
Surrender and what's the other word? Surrender and
Compliance.
compliance.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were looking for some
Yeah, I thought you were going
scripture or
something else.
You start with the compliance, and eventually
Yeah, and
it turns into surrender.
and that's my story. Like, I'm sitting in rehab at 18 years old, pretty much ready to get out, thinking I messed up signing myself into this place because they wouldn't let me out because I didn't have a ride. Uber didn't exist, you know. And I was like, I know what I'll do. I'm just gonna do everything they asked me to do, like the best I can, and then I'll get out and I can go get high. And I did everything they asked me to do the best I can, and it changed who I was.
Ah, cool.
You know what I mean? It pointed me to God, and I, part of that whole deal is asking God to fix some stuff.
Yeah.
And I gave God a test. I said, God, if you're real, I don't know if you are, or if you just don't like me, or whatever your issue is. If you're real, I'll give you a year. If my life's not better after a year of not drinking and using drugs, I'm out. Like, it's just, even the bad times have been pretty okay. Like I didn't really, I don't know about rehabilitation. There was a lot of things I didn't even know how to do yet.
Yeah.
So I think I had to get habilitated.
Habilitated.
Yeah, same.
And so, I've gone through some tough times, but God was with me.
Yeah,
What a weird concept.
it is.
What a bizarre thing. I think it's really a powerful deal to realize, after complaining and bemoaning and having all these bad things happen and thinking it was so bad and you didn't deserve it, to look back and realize all of God's grace
Yeah.
and just have nothing to say. I just have nothing to say.
Yeah.
Like, there's been some times in my life that, like, I thought I was going to kill myself or somebody else. I just couldn't stand to go on anymore the way things were. And, like, where I sit now, like, it's hard for me to even remember what that was like.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
accepting grace, and I think it's all comes down to worthiness too. Not at all, but it definitely, a lot of it comes from worthiness.
Yeah.
Having to, admit that we're worthy, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
It's pretty tough. Everybody wants to stay humble. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
The problem
but
is,
you are.
the problem people have with that is because we're not worthy, but Jesus
Yeah.
paid it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that people get hung up on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the part that's like, you meet people that claim to be Christian, go to church, and they're like just trying to be good. They're trying to be so good. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you trying to, like, buy your way in? That's not the way this works. Like, I feel like you missed
Trying to
something.
use the least amount of the blood as you possibly can.
Yeah, you missed the first step. And then and maybe we could get into a pretty wild conversation about levels in heaven and the way that stuff works. I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
My faith is not because the Bible said. My faith's because I have a real relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
A real one. A daily one. And if it goes a couple of days without me thinking that I've been talking to him, usually I figure out that I have talked to him, and that's it.
Yeah.
How do you explain that to somebody? The Bible's a great start.
Yeah.
It's a
I
great
think
start.
it's a great start. I think it's a great place to start.
But I don't think it's the destination.
Yeah, it's not.
You know?
Jesus is. Jesus is the destination.
Yeah.
The living word
Yeah.
pouring in
100%.
and pouring out.
And like, I get, God's maybe used some angels or talked to me directly a handful of times,
Yeah.
like a couple of times on drugs, a couple of times off. You know what I mean? I've had some weird experiences, but most of the communication I get from God, most of the direction I receive comes from people like y'all.
His church. It's how God chooses to speak to us. Also, is through
That's why
His
I
children.
surround myself by dudes that are just men.
Yeah.
It's a whole fathered by God principle too, of like being able to hear a man say something and then be like, oh yeah, that's good. I need to do that, and then doing it. Wisdom is great, but if you don't apply it, it falls short.
Yeah.
Well, wisdom without practical application
Yeah.
is just knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, wisdom is knowledge practically applied.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it would still be wisdom. It's just based on the person hearing it, right? I guess there are steps of like how to apply wisdom. But, it takes
like
both sides.
You can watch a YouTube video about how to change brakes on a Kia,
Yeah.
but like, I know how to change brakes on a Kia now.
Yeah.
and I might need to refer back to that YouTube video, but I've done it.
Yeah.
And now I have the wisdom of doing it. I don't just have the knowledge. You watch 30 videos about how to change brakes on a Kia,
Yeah.
and you don't have wisdom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that you don't use it, you lose it thing. I don't know if it's always 100%. Applicable in faith, but I think it can be.
Yeah. For sure.
You know?
It is. If you're not,
I was pretty rusty. You know?
Yeah.
Like I had 15 years of a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And then I found, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
A little bit of Motley Crue.
Yeah, except for not 90s gay. Like,
you were earlier.
I was cool.
Yeah.
I was like,
AC/DC.
Nirvana.
No.
All
of that was really too early for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, Linkin Park.
Oh, okay.
Oh. All right. Yeah, no, you're good.
Yeah, I was like, Linkin Park,
Green Day,
Swishahouse, Green Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Slipknot.
I'm 40. I was 16 in the year 2000. 2001.
Oh, that's wild.
2001 was my sophomore year.
I fall into that demographic. I was like 10 in.
Well, you were homeschooled.
I guess that makes sense.
We all know that.
I was pretty heavily influenced by them homeschool kids too.
You were from wherever you were from.
Yeah.
To
Carlisle.
Most
of that Spanish.
Yeah, I mean I think we're all from a pretty similar geographical area.
Yeah.
My daughter's experience with things are very different than mine. She's 18 now.
Yeah, my wife being from Alaska made it pretty good to get some flavor in there.
Different perspective.
Yeah, 100%. She had a crazy childhood too, and just that demographic, just depression and suicide is just so rampant.
Oh yes, yeah. My dad worked up there.
Where's she from? Years. Like, was it like
she's from Anchorage?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she lived in Anchorage till she was 18.
Okay.
And it's just like wild up there.
Yeah.
They still just are the Wild West.
Yeah.
It's just cold and there's no polar bears or penguins.
Yeah.
But
is Alaska more Texas than Texas?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank God.
I mean, that'd be a good question. I'm going to ask her that tonight, but I don't think so because it's not Texas. I like Texas.
It's bigger than Texas,
but
it is. But they're
I wanna get some couples on.
That'd be fun.
Get some couples on here, and it's like I feel like we need to. What kind of phone do you have? It's an iPhone. Good.
Yeah. I'm not.
We missed a couple of those.
Yeah.
iPhone all the way.
Yeah, he's not Tyler
I
Hartwig.
think Tyler Hartwig's the only guy.
Yeah.
Loser.
He's rough. That's awful.
Yeah. So
they make it group chats so difficult.
Yeah.
Well, it's better
turns
now.
The whole thing green.
Green.
Everybody green in there.
You can't edit or unsend stuff. You can't
it's so dumb.
You can't do anything.
Let me show you something. What color is the Messages app bubble?
Green.
That's weird, right?
They need to change
that.
Now
watch this. I'm going to text Tyler Hartwig right here. Y'all can't see this on the podcast, but it's pretty funny. Okay, here's Tyler Hartwig. He's gray, and then he lights up green. And then I'm going to say, hey, now look, he's got rich communication system. RCS is turned on his phone, right? So I can say, hey. And then, I can't do it.
You can't unsend.
But I can put a question mark on it.
Yeah.
So you've got I know you hate the word men's ministry.
I don't hate it. I don't think I can think of a better term.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean,
administration.
Where do you see God leading that? I mean, what's kind of your, I guess, playbook, brief?
Yeah. And how did you arrive at that?
Yeah,
because all the big stuff, I feel like for me, the big things that have happened that have been undeniably hand of God things, I've said, okay, God, I think this is what I'm hearing, but show me. Give me a sign I can't refute. Give me something. I'm dumb, Show me what you want.
Yeah.
I'll do that, Like, how did that kind of thought process come up? Or
I mean, yeah. So I went through the men's boot camp, and it was I was 18, and I mean it was just such
what year was that? Like 2017, 18?
Somewhere in there. Yeah.
When were you born?
97. So it was 15.
Okay.
I went through in 15.
That's so wild.
I went through
In 97, I was probably at Applebee's skating rink on some rollerblades, skating with some girls.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, they shut that down not too long ago.
Yeah.
But so I went through men's boot camp, and I just knew that the heart of man, something's off.
Yeah.
And so I pursued that, and like the 10,000 hour theory, I'm probably pretty close. Like, I mean, I went to every single one for 2 years, and anyways, when we found wilderness and started that pretty much here, it was me, Travis, Pete, Parker, and Jim, and we just started doing it here. Yeah, Emerald, and man, it went great, and I just realized how kind of easy it was.
Yeah,
we had a great team. We had a lot of guys that have been through it. So they could do that here, and our Freedom Weekends have just blossomed, and they're so productive. And I think that it also so I've talked to the creators of boot camp, Brian and Paul,
the Freedom Trainings
guys. The Freedom Training Ministry or Freedom Ministries guys. So I've picked their brain about it a lot, and I think what we have here is that we have a preacher, the leader, is like the so on board with, like, it starts with the men.
Yeah.
And that's one of their biggest hiccups is a lot of churches, they just like, dude, I grew up at a church that was just ran by the women, and the guys just showed up in their pleated pants and loafers.
I agree.
And I was like, what's going on? I can remember looking back, like, it was just the women did a lot of it, which is great. They're good at leading, but they're not designed for it. And so we ended up, starting that here. But my goals and aspirations, is that the word?
Yes.
Yeah. So big words, are to branch out and start doing that for other ministries and other churches. And Trace actually is going to be helping me with that. So that's what's on the plan here this year. It's going to be a good one. I think there's a prison ministry we might be trying to see if we can do it for. Y'all might have him on a podcast before this one, or a few before.
Actually, he came out today.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
But we're actually going down there in a couple weeks to talk to their guys and just brainstorm some stuff. But I think making the men a big focus point in churches and in just ministry and in life, revitalizing those and taking that to the moon. I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I think we really do have a great way to do it here too.
Well, as somebody who's, I guess, volunteered under your leadership, under everybody's leadership in this church, it really is a breath of fresh air to get in with this bunch of guys and to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I never feel like whenever I'm going to church, I never wake up and I'm like, ugh, I have to go to church and see all these people.
Well, you also don't have to wear pleated pants and penny loafers.
Yeah,
so.
they're wild.
Yeah, we'll probably throw you out, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's a couple.
There's a few of them.
There's one or two.
But
when we know who they are, they're on a list.
The main thing is
with the Android people.
With the Android.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Tyler Hartwig.
Hartwig.
The main thing is, like, being under that leadership has been something that it's grown me to be able to be used in ministry, for ministry, by ministry. Being from the perspective of being under you guys, like, it's something that I actually enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And, like, I've only been in that situation one other time, and it was in another country. That within itself was hard to find.
Yeah.
But that was a completely different subculture of Christianity.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us about your time with the Taliban?
Pretty sure we just got flagged.
Trust me, y'all have been flagged.
I'm sure it's not the first time. Just to clarify, I've never been in the Taliban or around anybody around the Taliban. This is a hot subject right now. That's the controversy right now because of everything going on in the country.
Good job.
I've been to boot camp.
Yeah.
And I've been to Freedom Weekend.
Yeah.
I love Paul, and I've talked to Paul, and I love Travis, and I've talked to Travis, and we're talking to you now, and like everybody's got a little bit of a different perspective.
100%.
What I can tell you is boot camp and Freedom Weekend are completely different things.
Yeah, they're not the same.
I've been to both, and I find value in both. What's special to me about Freedom Weekend is its implementation in our church
Yeah.
because of how our church operates, because of the mission that the church was built on, the foundational element of going after the man.
Yeah.
That's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
I think the challenge that you're going to find in implementing similar things in other churches is they're not the same. It's not the same ecosystem that we have here.
Yeah.
And I think one of the struggles for the original crew has been letting go of the thing that they created, that they built, that they're so happy and proud about,
Yes.
and that they think works, and letting God do with it something new. I appreciate that. I get it.
Yeah. 100%.
100% get both sides of it. Another thing I want to say about boot camp and Freedom Weekend, if you haven't been to one of them, get to one of them. It's a good time. I would not use the word vulnerable. I think the issue that the older generations have and that some of the younger generations have is they think that, like, guys, look, we can't tell you everything that's going to happen because it's an experience.
Yeah.
So if we tell you, it's just going to mess up your experience.
100%.
Okay? But let me tell you what it's not. It's not a bunch of guys getting around and telling their deep, dark secrets and being vulnerable. That's not my perception of what it is.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
I can tell you that if you have an open mind and you actually want to get closer to Jesus, you'll encounter Jesus
Yeah.
at one of these events.
It's an opportunity.
It's not forced. We can't make it happen. I can't tell you what your experience is going to be. I can tell you that I was hoodwinked into boot camp.
Yeah.
I was led to that blindfolded, pun intended.
Yeah.
I thought that it was a men's retreat. I paid for it.
Yep.
I expected to have a comfortable, relaxing, fun, good time and
Yeah.
learn some things about the Bible.
Hammocks and mojitos.
And that's not what it is. So if you're going to go to something like a boot camp, I'm never going to ruin any of this stuff for anybody. I'm just going to say that it was I'll say a breath of fresh air, a breath of fresh. I'm trying not to lie to y'all.
Yeah.
Having gone to boot camp first and have them try to get me to go back through and be on a team, in between me going through boot camp and my feelings some type of way about it,
Yeah.
and then landing at Wilderness, I never served on a team with boot camp.
Yeah.
And when I got here, Travis said, "Hey, man, I want you to come to Freedom Weekend." I'd seen y'all have a couple, 2 or 3, 4 Freedom Weekends. I hadn't gone, hadn't asked any questions because I was like, I know what it is. I had a brief conversation and basically got it's boot camp.
Yeah.
It's not boot camp.
Yeah. It's not. They're two separate things.
Not boot camp.
That's why I don't even compare them anymore.
Yeah.
Now, some of our curricula is definitely from boot camp, and I've talked to Paul and Brian and thanked them for letting the Spirit work through them in that way and build that stuff. And we've paid our homage to that. My idea, even with branching this out, is I don't think you can fit a square block in a round hole. And so we're going to retrofit to what they have and change it even more. It's not going to look the same here as it will at any other place. It's going to look different every other place.
And I think that's fair. What we have here is so special.
Well, hey, I'm glad to tell you, twice a year they do it. So I'm back.
100%. I'll be back. And I've gotten to do, now I've helped, and then I've done sound or video or whatever. I'll say this, if you're listening to this and you've been through a Freedom Weekend and you haven't come back and participated on the doing side of it, you've just been a consumer of it.
Yeah. Stuck in the pink cloud.
You gotta get up and do something. Because for me, it was way more impactful to help put it on than it ever was for me to go through.
Always. Yeah.
That's a wisdom thing.
Yeah.
I heard it, I believed it, but then when I did it, then I experienced
The
it. Now I
servants,
know
the
it.
servants see the miracles.
100%.
That's
an amazing,
the
you know,
servants see the
look,
miracles.
when we watched that episode of The Chosen, and it's like right after Michelle had read that account in Luke or whatever, and like, what a wild situation.
It is.
You know?
So you come back and serve, and you get so many blessings and get to witness.
So is there anything that you want to say, or, you know, is there like a final thought that you want to put out?
Yeah, a call to action for men. You are the church, you are in ministry, and it's time to step up. There's a big movement happening right now in the heart of men, and men in the church, and men leading the church. And it's not necessarily a topic, but it's my passion. My passion is lighting a fire under men and getting them to serve God the way they're designed to, and helping them along the way. I think we're pretty good at follow-up. I think there is absolute blessings in follow-up, and being able to help them after the fact. Just get to work.
Yeah,
we got work to do.
Jesus wants you, God's with you, and the church needs you.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Chance
what are we doing?
wants it raining men.
It's a raining man.
Oh, no. Right on. Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah,
And thank you to Ashley and your kiddo for letting you be here on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock. This has been another episode of Two Dudes, One God Pod. And next week, we have Troy Coleman.
Troy Coleman. Sick.
Which is going to be super cool.